You are.
Jonah, raised in Silverside.
Where are you going to school at?
Samo College,
Where's that at?
Claremont, California.
They have a racetrack out there, don't they?
In Santa Anita, yeah,
Okay.
close to there.
So you've been doing some research, you say, on
Yeah,
one of our local artists.
on John Michel Basquiat.
So what did you get into when you began to probe into that area?
Well, I think the reason for beginning to probe into that area was just the immediate force of looking at his work. I mean, I'm a little young. I was born 4 years after he died, 3.5, something like that. So that connection was never there. But something about just his work and his persona was very compelling. And so once I started to dig, I was really interested in kind of the way that he made his work, and kind of how it wasn't this super long thought out process where he had a perfect idea of what was going to be on the canvas from the moment he started doing it, but rather it seemed like this real interaction with the art form and with whatever he did, where he was constantly taking in, absorbing, and then putting that in his work. And kind of, I was just so interested in the fact that he was always watching TV when he was painting, he was always listening to music when he was painting, he always had books splayed out everywhere when he was painting. And kind of this idea that work obviously doesn't have to be just purely I mean, we all know that, but purely representing what's there, but kind of this constant process of navigating the world around us. And I think his work really demonstrates that in a way that is incredibly original, and kind of, on one hand, Jean-Michel always comes through in his work. On the other hand, he's doing that through so many other people's works, whether it be reusing forms that Picasso used, or reusing cartoon figures, or painting portraits of Charlie Parker, but kind of him filtering himself through the mass amount of information in life that is out there, and was there, and will continue to be there.
So you say you have some associations built around his relationship with other people during that time. So what are those pieces? How do they come together?
Well, I wrote the paper, and my thought process was connecting it not to people that he knew personally, but kind of people coming out of, I talked about in terms of the rapper Nas's first album, Illmatic, and the rapper Notorious B.I.G.'s first album. And what I really started to see there was kind of trying to use what I was just talking about with Basquiat in the way of absorbing the world and filtering it, and applying that to the art form of hip-hop, using Nas and Biggie's first album, in the sense that these were both, all three of them, young black guys from New York City, who, although they were from different places with different families and all had different situations, were all kind of navigating a fairly similar experience. And I don't think that's to say that their experiences, because I think when it comes down to it, all of our experiences more or less are navigating these waters of what have you. But I was very interested, I mean, I've always been very interested in hip-hop, and I see Basquiat as like a direct corollary to hip-hop for painting, in the sense that hip-hop is based off of the music, is based off of music that has come before, through sampling and through kind of reusing of music from before, but then that's immediately juxtaposed by the MC, in the sense that they always have to be present, and they have to be there, and they have to be giving themselves to the form for the whole time that they're up on the stage or in the studio. And I think that that juxtaposition really works well with the way that Basquiat thought about his work, in the sense that on one hand you're reusing these past forms and explicitly working with reconstructing what was already there, but at the same time through that, a stark sense of individuality immediately comes and I think what I kind of started with was this kind of spontaneity of creation that I saw in both of them. Like I was saying with Basquiat, how he would just stand in front of the canvas and paint and move from one to the other and just nonstop. And you read about, though there's not much, you read about one example in particular for Nas and Biggie. There's this DJ Premier, who is kind of one of the forefathers of sampling, maybe not forefathers, not the right word, but leaders of sampling. And he tells these two parallel stories, he doesn't tell them in a parallel way, but I brought them together. But New York State of Mind, which is the first song off of Illmatic, the first real song, DJ Premier made the beat. And he talks about the recording session where he and Nas were in the studio, and DJ Premier put together the beat, and Nas was sitting there. They were sitting there smoking, joking around, and less than an hour of listening to that beat and DJ Premier making that, Nas goes in the booth and in one take records the entire song straight through. And Nas is notorious for writing things, so I'm sure he wrote things down, but the fact that he just could sit there for that short a period of time and lay down such a fundamental piece of work was just incredible. And then you hear Premier talks about a very similar story with Biggie for the song Unbelievable, where they went into the studio, they were smoking, they were drinking, and in less than an hour, in no time, Big goes in there, he's just like, I'm ready. He goes in, spits Unbelievable, in one take also, and the song's there. And for me, there's something about that begins to tie into kind of what I was talking about before. And that's like the initial point of jumping off that I was talking about.
Does those people have any bleed-offs in today's music and today's paintings? Have you seen anything that's related to it, anything like that?
I mean, the countless amounts of...
Besides you taking a historical interest in it?
I mean, I think that, well, Nas is still here, as opposed to the other guys. Nas is still here. And I think everybody, whether you're in the critical music community or a hip-hop head or a rapper, understands the power of that first album from Illmatic, and kind of everybody's listened to it. And kind of this remains within the pantheon of these albums that just somehow came together.
So Basquiat's paintings, how do they connect with today's society?
I think we're still trying to understand them. I mean,
Have you seen his paintings?
I've seen a couple. They are incredibly difficult to see because they're in private collections all over the place.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah. I've seen a couple. I've seen Joe Louis Surrounded by Snakes. I saw that there was an exhibit out in Los Angeles for like art in the streets, which was kind of bringing together all these artists, and Basquiat was kind of just thrown in there without much emphasis, because of course he relates to these artists, but he wasn't a graffiti artist. He started writing graffiti, but it was not, he wasn't writing Jean-Michel Basquiat. He had these tags, these Samo tags, and I don't know if you remember seeing them, but these kind of very subversive, witty, acerbic remarks just about the world and the art world, just in black spray paint. So I saw the Joe Louis Surrounded by Snakes, and then about a month ago, I had been doing research and saw that there was a Basquiat selling at, it was Christie's, the auction house. Ended up selling in total with commission for $31 million. $31 million. And it's a painting about this wide, this tall, and it's an untitled work from 1981 where there's a black figure with kind of skeletal gestures around his stomach and here, and he's holding up a fishing rod with a fish hanging from it. It's untitled, and I saw that. And those are the only two works that I've seen, and I've tried everywhere I go. I ask, because I do research and see where they are, but They're in the back. Some of them are in the back collection somewhere, or they're in somebody's house somewhere else. I mean, next time there's a retrospective, that's where I'll be.
Okay.
I mean, to answer your question, $31 million is one of the ways that his work resonates with today. But I think when there's kids like me and my friends, because the reason I also did this work is my friends and I had gotten, one of my friends had seen a retrospective of his a couple years ago and has this poster sitting in his room. And it's one of the photos where he has his dreads tied up like here and he's wearing a suit and he's just giving you this look that's just, and from there we started watching some of the documentaries and looking at his work, and one thing led to another.
Mm-hmm.
But a funny story about that photo, kind of all these ways that his work and these guys resonate with today. I was at a critique for some of the work that I had done. I'm a photographer as well. And I had taken some portraits, and one of them was the friend who had the Basquiat poster in his room. And in the portrait, it was my friend sitting in his room at his desk, kind of just looking up at me like this. And in the back corner of his room is that portrait. And there was one woman in the class who could not stop talking about the portrait. She had no idea who Basquiat was or what he had done or anything, but she couldn't stop talking about the look he had in that corner over in his room. And it was just, of all the things that were, of all the different kind of ephemera that were in this kid's room, it was the one poster that this one woman just couldn't stop, kind of was so engaged with, even though she hadn't seen any of his work.
So, what do you think about him as an actor in the movie Downtown?
You know, I enjoyed the movie. I think he was definitely put in an odd situation in that film, because it seemed like, from what I've read and then watching the film, it seemed like it was Jean-Michel going around New York City being Jean-Michel, and one of his friends, I can't remember who made the film, but kind of saw how amazing of a person he was and was like, I want to make this movie about you, but I don't want to make it a biography, I want to make a fiction of your life. So I think that he was put in a awkward situation with that, to kind of be doing what he was doing and pretend that it was fiction, but have all these cameras on him and then have him do his own thing. So I think in that sense it probably was awkward. In the other sense, just to see this footage of him spray painting and walking around and going into clubs is unbelievable, because you just feel that presence. That, I mean, I obviously never got to feel, but kind of through his work and through these reproductions, I can begin to.
What about the movie they did of him? How does that relate to his real life?
The Radiant Child?
No, there was a commercial movie put out.
I actually have not seen that one. I've seen clips, but I've kind of stayed away from watching it. I think because David Bowie is Warhol, that really just threw me off and couldn't really deal with that. And also the guy who, I don't know, some people seem to like it. I've kind of done everything I can not to watch it.
Okay. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.